Hello, everyone. My name is Lily Austin, and I'm with the Junior League, and I'm here to read you The Polar Express by Chris Van Allsburg. Alsberg? I know it's like close to Christmas, so I wanted to read a Christmas story, and this is like one of my favorite books of all time. I got this book when I was super young, and I read it every Christmas, so I'm so excited to read it to you guys today. The Polar Express, written and illustrated by Chris Van Allsburg. Do you know what illustrated means? Illustrated means when you draw something. So if you draw a picture of something, then it's like illustrated by you. So it's just a nice new word to learn. The Polar Express. On Christmas Eve, many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I do not rustle the sheets. I breathe slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound a friend had told me I'd never hear. The ringing bells of Santa's sleigh. There is no Santa, my friend had insisted, but I knew he was wrong. Late that night, I did hear sounds, though not of ringing bells. From outside came the sounds of a hissing steam and squeaking metal. I looked through my window and saw a train standing perfectly still in the front of my house. What do you do on Christmas Eve? Do you lay in your bed, like hoping that Santa comes? I know I do. I'm like, oh, is he here? But he hears me. Oh, let me show you the photo. I'll show you. There he is. It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Snowflakes fell lightly around it. A conductor stood at the open door of one of the cars. He took a large pocket watch from his vest, then looked at my window. I put on my slippers and robe. I tiptoed downstairs and out the door. All aboard! The conductor cried out. I ran up to him. Well, he said, are you coming? Where? I asked. Why, to the North Pole, of course, with his answer. This is the Polar Express. I took his outstretched hand and he pulled me aboard. Have you ever seen a train before? Look how cool that train is. It looks massive. They're going to the North Pole. Have you ever been to the North Pole? Which direction is north? Typically it goes up. The train was filled with other children, all in their pajamas and nightgowns. We sang Christmas carols and ate candies with nougat centers as white as snow. We drank hot chocolate as thick and rich as melted chocolate bars. Outside, the lights of towns and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express raced northward. That's exciting. Do you like hot chocolate? I love hot chocolate. My favorite is to put peppermint in the hot chocolate, and it makes it minty and chocolatey. That's something that I always love. Soon there were no more lights to be seen. We traveled through cold, dark forests where lean wolves roamed and white-tailed rabbits hid from our train as it thundered through the quiet wilderness. Look at the wolves. They kind of look like dogs, don't they? But they're different. They're like closely related to dogs. We climbed mountains so high it seemed as if we would scrape the moon, but the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we ran along, rolling over peaks and through valleys like a car on a roller coaster. Have you ever been on a roller coaster? Look at that. The mountains turned into hills, the hills to snow-covered plains. We crossed a barren desert of ice, the great polar ice cap. Lights appeared in the distance. They looked like the lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on a frozen sea. There, said the conductor, is the North Pole. You see the lights? Those are the lights he's talking about. Look at all that snow. It's crazy. I wonder how cold it gets up there. Do you like the cold? I don't like the cold. The North Pole. It was a huge city standing alone at the top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy was made. At first, we saw no elves. They are gathering at the center of the city, the conductor told us. That is where Santa will give the first gift of Christmas. Who receives the first gift? We all asked. The conductor answered, he will choose one of you. Wow, can you imagine getting the first gift of Christmas from Santa Claus himself? That is crazy. Look at the city though. Look how beautiful it is. I love how they decorated the lights. Do you decorate your house with lights? Look, shouted one of the children, the elves. Outside we saw hundreds of elves as our train drew closer to the center of the North Pole. We slowed to a crawl. So crowded were the streets with Santa's helpers. When the Polar Express could go no further, we stopped and the conductor led us outside. You can't really see, but those are all like elves, the little circles, those elves. We pressed through the crowd to the edge of a large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were excited. They pranced and paced, ringing the silver sleigh bells that hung from their harness. It was a magical sound, like nothing I'd ever heard. Across the circle, the elves moved apart, and Santa Claus appeared. The elves cheered wildly. He marched over to us and, pointing to me, said, "Let's have this fellow here." He jumped into his sleigh. The conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee and he asked, "Now, what would you like for Christmas?" There's Santa. How many reindeer does Santa have? And what's the reindeer with the red nose? His name's Rudolph, right? I knew that I could have any gift I could imagine, but the thing I wanted most for Christmas was not inside Santa's giant bag. What I wanted more than anything was one silver bell from Santa's sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled. Then he gave me a hug and he told an elf to cut a bell from a reindeer's harness. The elf tossed it up to Santa. He stood, holding the bell high above him, and called out, "The first gift of Christmas!" What would you have asked for Santa? I don't know if I'd asked for a bell. I'm not sure, but what would you have asked him? A clock struck midnight as the elves roared their approval. Santa handed the bell to me, and I put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down from the sleigh. Santa shouted out the reindeers' names and cracked his whip. His team charged forward and climbed into the air. Santa circled once above us, then disappeared in the cold, dark polar sky. Look at him go. Isn't that crazy? Reindeer help him fly. That's pretty amazing. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, the other children asked to see the bell. I reached into my pocket, but the only thing I felt was a hole. I had lost the silver bell from Santa Claus' sleigh. "Let's hurry outside and look for it," one of the children said. But the train gave a sudden lurch and started moving. We were on our way home. Oh no. I would be devastated, so sad to have lost that bell from Santa. Because it's special, like he gave it to you. It broke my heart to lose the bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children. I stood in my doorway and waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. "What?" I yelled. He cupped his hands around his mouth. "Merry Christmas!" he shouted. The Polar Express let out a loud blast from its whistle and sped away. On Christmas morning, my little sister Sarah and I opened our presents. When it looked as if everything had been unwrapped, Sarah found one last small box under the tree. It had my name on it. Inside was the silver bell. There was a note. "Found this on the seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket. Signed, Mr. C." Hey, Santa Claus. I shook the bell, It made the most beautiful sound my sister and I had ever heard. My mother said, "Oh, that's too bad." "Yes," said my father, "it's broken." When I'd shaken the bell, my parents had not heard a sound. Santa's so good. He returned the gift to him. At one time, most of my friends could hear the bell, but as years passed, it fell silent for all of them. Even Sarah found one Christmas that she could no longer hear its sweet sound. Though I've grown old, the bell still rings for me as it does for all who truly believe. So if you believe in Santa, you will always hear the bell. That was a great story. It is my favorite. So great to read Christmas stories. I love it. I think my thing that I learned is that if you believe in Santa, you will always hear the bell. And yeah, thank you so much for listening to my story. I am so excited to continue to read to you guys.